All right, class, this is our last reading of the epic fail of Arturo Zamora. Chapter 26, The Verse and the Verdict. "We're going to hear from the community now," said Chairman Mandala. I wanted to wait for the right moment to speak, and I figured it might be good to go at the end so I could have the last word. Several people spoke about how Peepo Place would be good for the community. Eddie Strapp's dad talked about how he thought the grocery store would be in a perfect location. Ms. Minerva talked about the gym and how fantastic the new apartments would be. "It's just nice to come home after being around kids all day and have amenities like that," she said. "She was my 7th grade language arts teacher. How could she?" Just when I thought no one in the community would come to our defense, I heard Bicycle Bill speak up from the back of the room. I didn't realize he was here. "About 15 years ago, I remember asking Doña Veronica to host my 30th wedding anniversary at La Cocina, but she said there wasn't enough room to hold that many people, so she let us use the courtyard at her apartment complex. All we paid for was the food and service. She even let us stay in one of the apartments so we wouldn't have to drive home, for free. That was the last anniversary I celebrated with my Shirley. I'll never forget it." He paused, and his voice got very serious as he continued. "The Zamoras are a generous family and a pillar of this community." That was the longest time I think anybody had ever heard Bicycle Bill talk. Who knew he had such a strong connection to Abuela in La Cocina? I made a mental note to shake his hand after the forum. "I agree," Dulce Domingos said. "Doña Veronica came to my daughter Stephanie's house when my granddaughter was 6 months old. She brought a huge pot of lentils with her," Stephanie said as she held a toddler. "Doña Veronica told me that the potaje she made was going to keep my beautiful baby healthy and strong. Sophia is 3, and she hasn't had so much as a cold, knock on wood. Su comida nos alimenta." Stephanie ended by saying that Abuela's cooking, La Cocina's cooking, literally nourished the community. Hearing that made my heart feel full. Mr. Peepo said earlier that Peepo Place was exclusive and VIP. Could we talk about what that really means? It was Aunt Myrta. I hadn't seen her earlier. I guess she was one of the people who swore in to speak when I was too nervous to turn around. She must have taken an early flight from D.C. and gone from the airport straight to City Hall. Aunt Myrta's face was stern. She was really tall and easily commanded the attention of the room. She flipped through her yellow legal pad and continued. "According to my research, Peepo Land Holdings, LLC is offering premium rates to residents. However, the average income of residents of Canal Grove is well below the rates intended for Peepo Place. I would like Mr. Peepo to explain what he means when he says Peepo Place is for the community. What community is he referring to?" "Noted," Chairman Mandala said and wrote something down. There was a little commotion as people started murmuring. Chairman Mandala called order. Carmen motioned for me to get up. Clearly, she also felt I could ride this momentum, but Eddie Strapp's mom beat me to it and explained how Peepo Place would bring couture boutiques to Main Street. I thought about Wilfredo's now former assistant Claudio. Wilfredo didn't care about him or the neighborhood. He cared about himself and his money. "Last call for anyone to speak," said Chairman Mandala. This was it. One last shot. I'd like to say something," I said, digging my hands as deep into my pockets as they could go. One of these days I'd really bust through the lining. Wilfredo watched me intently as I turned to my mom and smiled. "Go ahead, young man," Chairman Mandala said. "State your name, where you are from, and what you would like to say about these 2 projects." I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Abuela's face showed up, surrounded by my whole family. Then the canals twisting and turning throughout the neighborhood all the way to La Cocina de la Isla. I opened my eyes and looked at the council members. "My name is Arturo Zamora," I began, "and I live in Canal Grove in Miami. I would like to speak in favor of La Cocina de la Isla and its beloved owner, my abuela, Veronica Zamora." I pulled out a folded piece of paper I had been carrying around since that night in Abuela's apartment. I opened it up and stared at the words I had written. I wrote this when Abuela, and I never read it to anyone. It's not very good, but, I guess she would have liked me to read it. It's called Tuyo. In the silence, I hear a melody in the ocean. In the ocean of solitude, sorry, hang on, let me start over. In the silence, I hear a melody. In the ocean of solitude, I sail on a ship to shore where you no longer are. In the heat of 1,000 summer days, I try to cool myself in the shades of floribundas, the coolness of the earth that you planted for us all. You nurture and teach. You bring hope when hope is lost. Your journey prepared us for our journeys beyond. Gracias, abuela, I said quietly. I folded the poem and put it back into my pocket next to the picture of Abuelo dressed as Jose Marti. My mission had been to deliver a speech that would win our case. Instead, what I delivered was Abuela's eulogy, and in the end, that was all that mattered. Chairman Mandala and the rest of the council members huddled together. Commissioner Garcia shook his head and then nodded. Councilmember Roberta Mancini said something about Canal Grove's history, and Ernesto Bustamante seemed to agree and then disagree. It was nerve-wracking to watch them. After 20 minutes, Chairman Mandala returned to the microphone. The council has decided to deliberate further and postpone the verdict until tomorrow. A collective echoed through the chamber. Wilfredo threw on his sunglasses and shuffled past us without looking. He was fuming, and I could tell by the way he muttered and bit his lip that he was trying not to lose it. My mom and I and the rest of the family met outside. I walked over to Bicycle Bill and thanked him. Your abuela was the greatest, he said as he hopped onto his bike and turned on his speaker. La vida es un carnaval by Celia Cruz filled the air, and a few people danced as they walked down the steps. Let's go to the restaurant to eat, my mom said to the rest of the family. Our cousins, who we called cousins but weren't really cousins, had manned the restaurant while we'd been at the council meeting. I'm sure they wanted to know what went down. We walked to the restaurant. A huge metallic People Place sign cast a shadow across the empty lot next to La Cocina. I felt like running up to it and knocking it down, letting it tumble to the ground with the rest of the fancy plans Wilfredo had for my neighborhood. But how could I possibly knock down an 8-foot sign made of metal? The bulldozer had been reparked on the lot. It blocked the entrance to the patio, and my mom called the towing company to have it removed. It's parked illegally, my mom said with an innocent, slightly mischievous grin. She and I waited outside for the tow truck to arrive. When it finally showed up, the driver tried to hitch the bulldozer to the tow, but he didn't have enough space to get the whole bulldozer onto the truck. Gonna need to back up a bit, the guy said. My mom waved her hands, and I joined her in directing the truck driver. I motioned for him to make a slight turn, but he cut the wheel so hard it swung the cord attached to his truck. The whole thing tipped onto its side, and my mom and I jumped back. When the truck regained its balance, the front part of the bulldozer that looks like angry teeth slammed to the ground. The loud crash vibrated from the parking lot and echoed through Main Street. People ran out of their stores to see what had happened. When I turned around, I saw Wilfredo Pipo's 8-foot sign had been flattened and cracked in half. Dulce Dominguez crossed the street and clapped. Mr. Michaels looked shocked and asked if everyone was all right. My mom had the widest, funniest grin on her face. The bigger they are, she said, and wrapped her arms around my waist. The harder they fall. Officer Rogelio pulled up in his police car. Clearly that sign is a hazard, he said, and promised Wilfredo would be issued a citation. Garbage comes on Mondays, Aunt Tootie shouted from the patio. The city will collect it. Now there's a little break. We all went inside for lunch. Like always, a few tables had been pushed together lengthwise across the center of the dining room. I picked a seat as Carmen passed by. Gotta go wash my hands, she said as she left her bag on the chair next to mine. My mom slid into the other seat next to me and gave me this look like she knew something was up. Well, I approve of her family, so that's good, she said with a smirk. I said, reminded about Carmen being my mom's goddaughter. She's not family, though. Of course she's family. A sour taste suddenly nipped at my tongue. Arturo, family is not just blood. Family is friendship. Family is community. She's not related, right? I asked. My mom laughed. No, she's not related. The sourness suddenly turned sweet again. Thank goodness, because that would have been really, really weird. I'm very proud of you, she said as she poured some freshly made mint juice into her glass. Thanks, I said. Hey, Mom. See? What if Wilfredo wins tomorrow? What if the whole neighborhood changes? Things have already changed, Arturo, my mom said. We'll just keep fighting to protect our place in that change. You showed me that. She took my hand. You have Abuela's spirit, she said. What? And Abuelo's romanticism. Mister, I blush every time Carmen is near. My mom squeezed my hand a few times and smirked. Okay, if she knew about the kiss, I was going to throw myself into the ocean. I have no idea what you're talking about, Mom, is all I said. I love you, Arturo. I love you too, Mom. Happiness settled into her dark brown eyes. Carmen returned, and the rest of the family dug into the dishes laid out across the table. Why don't you read that poem again, my mom asked as she clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. Sorry, Mom. No way. Yes way, she said. Everyone, I think it will be nice if Arturo reads that poem again, don't you? Was it my mother's job in life to embarrass the heck out of me? That poem was the result of an extreme emotional situation. It was a one-time thing. I had no desire to ever read in public again. Carmen stared at me and smiled. I wasn't Jose Marti. I didn't have his mojo. But if I could make Carmen smile like that, then I could totally recite my poem again. Everyone clinked their glasses in approval when I finished, and Carmen whispered, That was awesome. I wondered if I'd ever be able to be near her without my neck flaring up like a boiling lobster. Uncle Frank waved his cell phone excitedly. Arturo, I think I just posted a quote from your poem on our website. Let me see. Carmen took Uncle Frank's phone and inspected. You did it, Papa. You finally posted something on your own. Uncle Frank smiled triumphantly. I am officially social media savvy. He took the phone and admired his post. There aren't any responses yet. That's because you posted it 3 seconds ago, Papa. We all laughed as we watched Uncle Frank hit refresh and wait for responses to arrive. After lunch, the family dispersed while a few of us, like Martin and Mary, stayed behind to prepare for dinner service. I looked around La Cocina de la Isla. The colorful columns and food and memories were my second home. I thought of Abuela and my family, of the tree-lined streets and canals that made up Canal Grove, my neighborhood. Change had come, but I wasn't worried anymore. Here's the epilogue. A few weeks after the vote, Mop and Bren came home. We met at the park with Carmen and Vanessa. Bren brought a football to throw around to impress Vanessa, but she totally ignored him. She had packed a picnic for all of us and served this delicious mango juice she'd bought at the new juice bar that had opened up in place of Wilfredo's office. Did you catch that? Wilfredo's gone. After hearing the community, the city council voted and a new ordinance was passed. Buildings could not be taller than a certain height. Peepo Place didn't fit in with the neighborhood. I couldn't find out where he had gone. Then one day, Aunt Tootie came to dinner, all hysterical, because she had found out that Wilfredo was running for public office. He wants to be city commissioner. Can you believe that? No way, I can't. Don't get hissed. Don't say it, everyone yelled in unison before Brian could finish. The idea of Wilfredo Peepo running for city commissioner was both ridiculous and terrifying. Whatever his plans, I knew he didn't stand a chance against my family. Our lease was renewed, and my family started working with a contractor for the expansion almost immediately. Uncle Frank helped out with the planning. In the meantime, we planted floribunda bushes everywhere. Abuela would have loved that. But back to the picnic. Vanessa, Carmen, Mop, Bren, and I ate and played poker for pastelitos. Bren knew how much Vanessa loved pastelitos, so he kept tipping his cards so she could see. Mop protested because he gets really competitive with card games. Dude, stop cheating. I'm just helping her out, Bren said and smiled awkwardly, which made Vanessa roll her eyes. Carmen sat really close to me, and a couple of times our hands touched, which made me eat my sandwich really, really fast. This happened like 4 times, so by the last sandwich I was so stuffed that I felt like throwing up. There were only a few weeks left before Carmen and her dad had to go back to Spain. It was hard not to think about that, but Carmen told me she didn't want to spend her last days worrying. Like your poem says, the journey prepares us for the journeys beyond. Uncle Frank's first ever post ended up getting a ton of likes and comments. He decided to put my entire poem on the homepage of their website, which was pretty cool. And the fact that Carmen was quoting my poem was especially awesome. It was epically awesome. Oh, and I was promoted to assistant junior cold food prep cook. Martin was still my boss, but he wasn't as bad to work for anymore. He continued to punch me in the arm whenever I didn't add enough vinaigrette to a salad or when I didn't put enough ceviche on a plate. He said it was so I would stay alert during my shift, but really, I think he just liked to punch me in the arm for random reasons. Oh, and the letters Abuelo left me? Well, I continued filling the blank pages. It was my way of talking to both of my grandparents. Now the author uses a little pot. So, here's the thing. Life had changed in a big way. Abuela was gone, and she'd left a big hole behind. But we had also brought the community together. You could feel it. We were all much closer than before Wilfredo had ripped through town, and my mom made it a point to take more days off. She and my dad went out on dates like 2 or 3 times a week now. I sometimes heard her giggling through the hallway, and I gotta be honest, it was kind of embarrassing. Vanessa was accepted to Junior Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., and she said her first order of business would be to change the design of the organization's logo, because she said it was offensive to indigenous peoples. And then another little... After one Sunday family dinner, when everyone had gone home and it was just my mom, Carmen, and me left to lock up, I looked over at Abuela's urn. Carmen stood next to me as we waited for my mom to finish up in the kitchen. Carmen followed my gaze and said, "I never understood why we display the ashes of the dead this way." "She's trapped," I replied. "It's sad when you think of how much Abuela liked going to the beach and gardening outside." I turned around to find my mom behind us. I prayed that she hadn't heard me say that. "You're right, Arturo, and I have an idea." My mom took my Abuela's and Abuelo's urns and asked us to follow her outside. We walked through the streets toward the canals. We stopped by an old structure that was probably once a tower of some kind, a reminder of Canal Grove's Spanish architectural history. My mom handed me Abuela's urn while she held on to Abuelo's. "Are you sure, Mom?" I asked. "They should both flow through this town and out to sea, where maybe they'll make it back to the island of their birth." "Wow, that's pretty deep, Mom." She smiled and winked. "You're not the only poet around here." We opened the urns and freed Abuela and Abuelo into the canal. "That's where they need to be," I said. My mom nodded, and Carmen smiled as I watched Abuela's and Abuelo's ashes move with the current down the twists and turns of the many canals that made up our beautiful neighborhood. And that is the end of The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora. The author includes some recipes in the end, so I was thinking maybe I'll take some photos and post them on Schoology, and maybe if some of you are interested in trying some of these recipes, maybe you'll make some.